Hello, I'm going to talk to you today about using Judy's Magic cast-on method as a provisional cast-on instead of a cast-on for in the row for working toe-up socks, which is what it's typically used for. So I already have some sample stitches set up here. I have 8 on each needle. This silver needle was my top needle. This red needle was my bottom needle. Now, for the top needle, I like to use a interchangeable needle that has a stopper on the one end because these top stitches are going to be my provisional stitches. These bottom stitches on the red needle will be my working stitches. Now you can use these stitches if you're working in two directions and you want to work from this way for a bit and that way for a bit. That works too. Or you can just work from these stitches, loop around, and seam onto these live stitches here. What I typically do after working a row or two is I take this needle off, I pull the cable through, take this needle off, and put another stopper on so that those stitches are nice and protected. So when I'm going to start this, what I do is you turn it, and what I like to do is I like to take both the tail and the working yarn into my hand for knitting. Get my other needle. So my red needle is on top, so when you turn it, your bottom needle becomes your top needle and becomes your working needle, and the bottom needle, or sorry, what was your top needle becomes your bottom needle. So I'm ready to start stitching here. What I like to do is pull that out so I just have the cable to deal with. Now the first row you're going to be working here across these stitches on the red needle, this is your first row of your pattern. So whatever your pattern is, work the first row of your pattern. I'm going to show you in just straight stockinette stitch. Now if you are doing cable stitches or something across your first row, like in my Cape Spear headband pattern, having this cable is really helpful because it gives you the flexibility to move these stitches around as opposed to having just a needle across there, which can be kind of difficult to deal with because it's so rigid. So I'm just going to do a couple stitches here, or a couple rows. So my first two stitches, again, working yarn and tail held together. I'm just going to stitch very normally, drop that tail, and then just use the working yarn. Finish that first row. Again, this will be the first row described in your pattern. So that last stitch, now if you're using this as it's typically used as a cast on for toe up, you would keep working these bottom stitches here. But that's not what we're going to do today. We're just going to flip that around, and you're going to work as if it's just a flat piece. And I'm going to do a row of purls just to give you guys a little more fabric to look at. Make sure you work both the working yarn and tail there for those first two stitches. So if I flip that and show it to you, you can see we've got our working stitches and our provisional cast on. So you can work from these stitches here on the bottom there, and it makes a nice clean seam, and you just keep working up from here. And again, I would just change this needle now over to another stopper like that. Keeps the stitches safe and tight and closed. If you don't have interchangeables, I recommend just using a cable needle and pulling it out the way I did, and then when you're ready to protect those stitches, to put them aside, you can put it on a stitch holder, you can put it on yarn, whatever you prefer. Now, something you'll need to keep in mind is when you are ready to either seam these stitches or work again from them, they're actually twisted, these stitches. That's just sort of a feature of Judy's Magic Cast On, is that this row is cast on twisted. So you can see the leading edge of your stitch is to the back. So when you work these stitches, so if you were knitting them, if you're going to knit this direction too, you would just, for the very first row only, you would knit through the back loop. And if you are just going to seam these, what you should do is put them onto a needle and put them in the right orientation as you put them onto the needle to get ready to seam. Okay, so this is just a really great way to have a provisional cast on. The best thing is that I have 8 stitches here and I have 8 stitches there. I don't have to worry about trying to find that lost stitch that is very typical of a provisional cast on. And or I don't have to worry about decreasing my working stitches either. So I like to use it. It's my go-to method for provisional cast on, and hopefully it helps you guys with your own knitting, and it's something you can add to your repertoire. Thanks!